So I was watching the Avengers the other day, right? And I started noticing all of the explosions and cars being thrown and all these really cool special effects, but it got me thinking about the heroes. And I'm not talking about Iron Man and Spider-Man, etc. I'm talking about the real heroes of the movie, right? The ones that don't get the glory. I'm talking about the insurance agents, because they're the ones that have to process all of these claims. And I wanted to build an application around that mindset of what does it look like to have insurance companies offer plans and bundles and packages in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's what we're dealing with today. So when you come to this site, you can check out all the different plans that we have to offer: temporal displacement, mutation onset, right? Avenger level property protection, just making sure the Hulk doesn't throw your brand new car. You can get a bunch of other plans inside of here as well. Now, the core aspect of this idea is that I wanted to kick off a Orkes workflow. So as you come down here, you can check out our plans, right? And then you can come up here, you can say, you know what? I want to go ahead and get coverage. So once you decide that you do want to go ahead and get an insurance plan, then you can come over here and you can say, you know what? Let me check out my coverage options by chatting with a consultant, with an agent. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off this conversation. This is going to start an Orkes workflow, right? I've now entered this space where they're reviewing my account. They're looking over to see all of the protection plans that we have. They notice that this is a brand new conversation. So the workflow sends back this message. And now it's just asking me probing questions, right? I'm going to say, hey, the Hulk is fighting, and I want to make sure I'm covered in case he throws my car. Okay, so we just got that in place. And now if I hit enter here, this is going to send back my response to my workflow. Now, keep in mind, my workflow had to pause for me to be able to send this message, right? I could pick things back up. It's great. It's looking at the Avenger level property protection plan. Seems like it's a good fit. And would you like information on personal injuries, or are you mainly concerned about my car and other property? In my case, I'm mainly concerned about my car. And perfect. I have that set up. I'm going to say, you know what? This looks great. So let's hit enter here, and we'll just pause and wait for the next message to come through. But what's happening is now that I've selected my messages, it's like as a user, I want the next step to be generated for me. So with that said, the next message pops up and it says, okay, great. This information all helps a lot. And they've emailed me an invoice. Now I'm going to check on my email really quick. And if I double click, hopefully we can get one popped up. Awesome. You can see, hey, dear valued customer, and notice two things that are happening here. Based off of our concerns about potential car and property damage, right? That's contextual information based off our conversation. I went ahead and I specifically recommended this plan because of superhero battles, ensuring your assets are protected in these unique scenarios. This is, again, contextual based off of the conversation that I had. Here's the total amount due, and here's the invoice that I can pay. That's really great, and it shows off the power of Orkes when we have a workflow. Peek under the hood a little bit. Here's what we have. We're setting up some global variables. It's just going to keep track of our state throughout this process. And then from here, we're using an LLM to make a decision on our behalf. Now, this is nothing special, right? People have been doing that for a while now. What's interesting in our case is that we have it all inside of a do-while loop. So we never know the decision that's going to be made because it's purely based off of the conversation that is happening between the agent that we've created and the customer's conversation. Those factors come into play so that we can come up with essentially 4 use cases. We have a default, which is just basically shut things down. The ones that we're mainly concerned about today are going to be this email invoice, which is where you saw it made the decision to send that invoice over to me. We have the option to escalate to a human, and then we can, of course, send a message. And what's interesting is that the send message flow is what dictates whether or not this conversation keeps happening. The rest of these have terminate clauses inside of them, so the conversation ends up stopping there, right? We safely exit out of the conversation. If I show you what the workflow looked like, you can see on the first iteration of our LLM, let's get over to this one. You can see that it had our plans, but we didn't have any message history, right? Based off of that, said, hey, there's no message history. We need to go ahead and get into this send message flow. As the conversation continued, we continued the message and it maintained that message history based off of the input that we passed to it between the system and the user. And the output was, hey, as of right now, we're looking at this Avenger level protection. That could change based off of the context of the conversation. We don't know. And then we ended up saying, you know what? The customer has clearly stated that their main concern is their car being damaged. So our agent made the decision after the course of these iterations to go ahead and select this plan bundle. However, instead of sending a message, now we are going to email an invoice. And this is essentially going to take our current conversation, send it over to an LLM. It knows about the plan bundle, so we can format an HTML email. This is going to be dynamic. And sending that off to SendGrid, and then we are going to notify our front end. If we take a peek over at the integrations that we have set up through the AI prompts, we can definitely come over here and say that when it comes to sending an email, we're doing a bit of prompt engineering to make sure that we have something that makes sense. Right here is the current plan bundle. You can see that it shows up as a variable on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side rather. And we're essentially going to structure this in a way so that it makes sense to our users where they can get an email inside of here. However, what happens when we need to escalate, right? Let's just say that we started a brand new conversation over with our agent here. And just right out of the gates, we didn't want to deal with a bot. So I'm going to say, oh my goodness. Note that the conversation isn't specifically saying I need to talk to a human, right? I'm just saying I don't want to talk to a bot. I hate this experience. So I'm going to hit enter here, and we're going to see what our agentic flow decides to do in this situation. So we have this in place. You can see that our agent is spending some time thinking. You can imagine in the real world, a person would say, hey, hold on, maybe I need to do something else here. Maybe I need to engage someone else. So what we have is this running workflow. And we come down here and the path chosen was to escalate. So it's waiting because we've notified our supervisor in this case that we need to have someone else involved, right? Someone has to take this over. Now you can imagine in the real world, this would be a separate UI, but it is really cool to see how Orkes handles these things. We have a human task here and we have information that occurred. The customer has expressed frustration with interacting with a bot and has not provided any information about their insurance needs, making further automated questioning unlikely to be productive. Now, we could have several supervisors, so myself, pretending to be one, I'm going to claim this as someone who's going to handle this situation. And once I get done looking at the customer's account and reaching out, I can mark it as complete. And just like that, our workflow says, okay, this sounds serious. I've gotten a supervisor involved. They'll reach out shortly, and they disconnected the chat.